Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. Today we're diving into a real classic, a book that basically laid the groundwork for so much of modern self-help and human relations thinking. We're talking about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It really is foundational, isn't it? You can trace so many later ideas back to this one book.
Absolutely. And Carnegie himself, well, he was kind of the original architect of this structured approach to personal development. They even called him the archpriest of the art of making friends. He wasn't about vague ideas. He was pushing specific techniques for self-confidence, for interpersonal skills.
And the impact is just staggering when you think about it. Tens of millions of copies sold, translated into what, 36 languages?
Yeah, exactly. It's more than just a book. It's become this, global touchstone for figuring out how to deal with other human beings.
What's fascinating, too, is that its success wasn't really predicted. It wasn't like they launched it expecting a blockbuster.
Not at all. It came out in 1937, and the initial expectation was maybe 5,000 copies would sell.
Right, just a modest print run. But it just exploded, became an overnight sensation, basically.
Which really points to this huge unmet need that was out there, doesn't it?
Completely. There was actually some interesting research around that time that backs this up. The University of Chicago and the YMCA schools did this big 2-year survey, cost $25,000, which was a fortune back then.
Wow. So what were they looking for?
They were trying to figure out what adults were really interested in, what they worried about, what drove them. They interviewed hundreds of people.
And the big finding?
Well, after basic health concerns, the number one thing people cared about was relationships. Specifically, how to understand people, how to get along with them, how to make people like you, and, crucially, how to win others over to your way of thinking.
It's almost funny, isn't it? People knew they needed these skills, but there wasn't really an instruction manual.
Exactly. And that's the gap Carnegie filled. Because this book, How to Win Friends, it wasn't meant as, light reading for a Sunday afternoon.
Right. It was actually designed as a handbook, almost a textbook, wasn't it? For his courses.
Precisely. His very popular courses on effective speaking and human relations. The principles in it weren't just theories he dreamed up. They came from years of observation, years of really intensive research into how successful people actually behaved.
The level of detail is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I read somewhere he studied over 100 biographies of Theodore Roosevelt alone.
That's right. Not just reading them for enjoyment, but dissecting Roosevelt's methods. How did he handle allies, opponents, subordinates? It was very much data-driven, looking at what worked and what didn't in the real world.
So even though it's been updated a bit over the years, I think his wife Dorothy Carnegie did some revisions to freshen up examples, the core message, that kind of exuberant conversational style, and the basic psychological insights. They hold up.
They really do. It proves that the fundamentals of human ego, motivation, how we react to each other, haven't really changed all that much.
So for anyone listening, the key thing to grasp about this book, maybe the most important thing, is that it's meant to be an action book. Carnegie himself was very clear about this.
Yeah, he wasn't just trying to impart knowledge. He quoted Herbert Spencer, didn't he? Quote, "The great aim of education is not knowledge, but action. The goal isn't just to learn these rules. It's to fundamentally change your habits, to create a, quote, new way of life."
A new way of life.
Yeah.
That sounds ambitious.
Well, think about William James, the psychologist. He talked about how most of us have these dormant powers, these unused assets, things like empathy, social intelligence that we just habitually fail to use.
Right.
Carnegie's book is essentially a guide to waking up those assets, dusting them off, and actually putting them to work. It's less about learning something totally new and more about stopping the things we do that get in our own way socially.
Okay, so if it's this manual for a new way of life, who's the intended student? Is it just for salespeople or managers?
You might think so from the title, Influence People, but Carnegie really saw it much more broadly. He was aiming at anyone who wanted what he called the highest priced ability under the sun.
Yes.
The ability to deal with people effectively.
That really resonates. I remember reading that John D. Rockefeller quote. Something about how that ability is a commodity, like sugar or coffee, and he'd pay more for it than anything else.
Exactly. When someone like Rockefeller values relationship skills more than technical skills or financial smarts, you realize just how universal this is.
So it's not just for the corner office.
Not at all. Think about it. Almost every critical moment in life involves other people. Leading a team, trying to persuade a client, just keeping the peace at home.
Right.
Success in almost any area requires you to navigate those human interactions well.
And the book makes some pretty direct promises, doesn't it? Things that still sound appealing today, like increasing your influence, your ability to get things done.
Yes, and handling tricky situations, better dealing with complaints, avoiding pointless arguments, turning those potentially negative interactions into positive ones.
It also talks about becoming a better speaker, a better conversationalist.
And crucially, how to arouse enthusiasm in the people around you, your associates or colleagues. These are very practical, tangible benefits.
But you mentioned it requires action. It's not just about reading it cover to cover once.
Definitely not. Carnegie was very specific about the learning process. He knew how easy it is to slip back into old habits.
So what did he recommend?
First, read a chapter quickly to get the main idea. Then go back and reread it carefully. Maybe underline things, really absorb it.
Okay, that sounds standard enough.
But here's the crucial part. You have to apply the rules immediately, constantly, at every single opportunity. He hammered this point home.
Why so insistent?
Because, as he put it, only knowledge that is used sticks in your mind. If you just read it and think, oh, that's interesting, you'll forget it within days. You have to actively practice it until it becomes second nature.
That sounds like building a new habit, which takes effort.
Yeah.
How did he suggest tracking that?
He actually recommended keeping a record, like a diary or a log, noting down when you tried to apply a principle, who you were interacting with, the date, and most importantly, what happened. What were the results?
Tracking your successes.
Exactly.
Good.
Because seeing proof that it works, I tried praising instead of criticizing, and this positive thing happened that reinforces the new behavior. It closes the loop, makes you want to do it again. It's deliberate practice for social skills.
So it's a real commitment then. You're essentially trying to rewire your instinctive reactions.
You absolutely are. You're fighting against, decades of ingrained habits, the urge to argue back, the desire to tell someone they're wrong, to complain. And that leads us right into the very first big takeaway from the book.
Okay, let's get into the core principles. What's the first one?
This one is maybe the hardest for people to swallow initially because it goes against every instinct when we feel wronged or see a mistake. The first rule is don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Right, don't criticize. Sounds so simple, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, our first reaction is often to point out the fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
To correct someone.
It is. And Carnegie says that impulse, while natural, is almost always futile. Worse than futile, actually it's dangerous.
Dangerous. Why?
Because criticism directly attacks a person's pride, their sense of self-worth. And when you do that, you don't inspire change, you trigger defensiveness. The person immediately starts trying to justify themselves, and they resent you for making them feel attacked.
That's like that idea of cognitive dissonance, right?
Yeah.
Our minds work overtime to make our actions align with their self-image. If I messed up, it's easier to believe I was misunderstood than to believe I'm incompetent.
Precisely. The mind rationalizes to protect the ego. Carnegie used some pretty stark examples to illustrate just how powerful this self-justification mechanism is, even in extreme cases.
Like who?
Well, he talks about Two-Gun Crowley, the cop killer. When Crowley was cornered by police in a shootout, he actually wrote a letter. And in it, he said something like, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." He claimed he was just defending himself.
Wow. A killer seeing himself as kind-hearted, even then.
It shows how deep that need to see oneself in a positive light runs. And he mentioned Al Capone, too. Capone didn't see himself as a ruthless gangster. He saw himself as an unappreciated and misunderstood public benefactor.
Because he provided liquor during Prohibition?
Yeah, basically serving a public demand.
Yeah.
He rationalized his entire criminal enterprise. And warden laws of Sing Sing prison backed this up. He
Sure.
said very few criminals he dealt with actually saw themselves as bad men. They always had justifications, reasons why it wasn't really their fault.
So the point is, if even notorious criminals don't blame themselves, how likely is it that the average person you criticize is going to accept your critique gracefully?
Exactly. Criticism, no matter how logically sound or factually correct you think it is, usually fails because the other person isn't hearing the logic. They're feeling the attack on their self-importance.
This isn't just about criminals, though, right? It applies everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Carnegie gives examples from politics, from business. Remember President Taft? When Theodore Roosevelt publicly criticized him for being too conservative, Taft was apparently heartbroken, even wept. But did he change his mind?
No, he said something like, I don't see how I could have done any differently.
Right. The criticism wounded him, but it didn't persuade him. It just solidified his stance and likely created resentment.
And the Teapot Dome scandal example is pretty visceral, too. Albert Fall convicted of corruption.
Yeah, facing national disgrace. But when his wife heard someone suggest Fall had betrayed President Hoover, she didn't react with shame or remorse. She apparently screamed that her husband was the one who'd been betrayed, led to the slaughter, crucified. The instinct to defend, to justify, was overwhelming.
It really highlights how emotionally charged criticism is. Which brings us to Lincoln. Carnegie seemed fascinated by Lincoln's journey with this.
He really was, because Lincoln wasn't always this paragon of restraint. As a young man, he apparently had a very sharp tongue, wrote these satirical, ridiculing letters about his opponents, sometimes anonymously.
And that caused problems.
Big problems. It created lifelong enemies. He learned the hard way about the bitterness and futility that criticism breeds.
So he changed his approach.
Dramatically. Later in life, especially during the presidency, he adopted this philosophy, basically, judge not that ye be not judged. He practiced incredible restraint, even under immense pressure.
Like after Gettysburg.
That's the classic example. General Meade lets Lee's army escape across the Potomac. Lincoln is absolutely furious, feels Meade squandered this golden chance to end the war right there.
So he writes Meade a letter.
A really blistering letter detailing the mistakes, the catastrophic consequences. It was probably entirely accurate.
They didn't send it.
He never sent it. He put it aside. Why? Because he realized, probably after cooling down, that sending it would achieve nothing positive. It might satisfy his own anger for a moment, but it would crush Meade's spirit, make him defensive, maybe even make him resign. It would be counterproductive. Lincoln understood that sharp criticism almost always backfires.
That's a powerful lesson in leadership. And it applies just as much today, doesn't it?
Right.
Like in the workplace example Carnegie gives.
The safety coordinator, George B. Johnston, yeah, that's a perfect modern illustration. His job was to get construction workers to wear hard hats.
So he used authority. Regulations say you have to wear this.
Exactly. He laid down the law, and what happened? The workers put the hats on when he was looking.
And took them off as soon as he walked away.
Yeah, you got it. Sullen compliance at best. The criticism, the enforcement, it didn't change their underlying attitude or behavior. It just bred resentment. You need a different approach, one that taps into motivation, not just demands compliance.
Okay, so if criticism is the stick that doesn't work, what's the carrot? That must be the next takeaway.
It is. If takeaway 1 is about what not to do, takeaway 2 is about the positive action you should take. And it connects directly to that ego protection we were just talking about. The principle is give honest and sincere appreciation.
Appreciation. Not just avoiding criticism, but actively looking for the good and pointing it out.
Precisely. Carnegie argues this taps into what William James called the deepest principle in human nature. The craving to be appreciated, the desire for a feeling of importance.
He says it's almost as strong as hunger or the need for sleep.
Almost as imperious, yeah. It's a fundamental psychological need. Deprive someone of recognition, of feeling valued, and you're essentially starving a part of them.
And this desire can drive people in both positive and negative directions, right?
Absolutely. It's the engine behind great achievements. Think of Dickens wanting literary fame or Sir Christopher Wren wanting his architectural work admired. That desire for importance fuels creativity and ambition.
But it can also be destructive.
Tragically, yes. Carnegie points to examples like juvenile delinquents or even famous criminals like John Dillinger. Sometimes the only way they feel they can get that sense of importance, that recognition, is through notoriety. Becoming public enemy number 1 might be a twisted way, but it fulfills that craving to be noticed, to matter.
So understanding this deep craving is key to motivating people positively.
It's the secret weapon, according to Charles Schwab. Remember him? The steel magnate Andrew Carnegie hired, who earned that incredible $1 million a year salary back when that was astronomical.
Yeah, what was his secret?
Schwab told Carnegie flat out, his ability to deal with people was his greatest asset. And a huge part of that was his approach to motivation. He said he found no one, no matter how high up or important, who didn't do better work under a spirit of approval than under criticism. He was lavish in his praise and encouragement.
And he learned that from Andrew Carnegie himself, didn't he? Carnegie was famous for praising his associates.
He was. He understood that the psychological payoff of appreciation far outweighed the cost of almost anything else. It built loyalty, it fostered effort. There's that story about Edward T. Bedford,
Andrew Carnegie's partner. The one who lost $1 million on a bad investment.
That's the one. $1 million back then was catastrophic. Most bosses would have been furious, maybe fired him on the spot.
But Rockefeller, who was involved in the deal somehow.
Rockefeller actually praised Bedford. He said something like, "That's splendid. We don't always do as well as that upstairs," congratulating him for managing to save 60% of the investment rather than condemning him for losing 40%.
Wow. And the effect.
It secured Bedford's absolute loyalty and commitment for life. That sincere appreciation in a moment of failure was worth far more than the $1 million lost.
Okay, but here's the question that always comes up with this. Isn't this just flattery? Isn't it manipulative? How do you make sure it's sincere appreciation?
That is the absolute crucial distinction, and Carnegie emphasizes it heavily. Flattery, he says, is counterfeit. It's insincere. It's selfish you're saying it to get something. It comes from the teeth out, as he put it, and people can usually spot it a mile off.
Right, it feels hollow. Like that Mexican General O'Brigan's quote, "Be afraid of the friends who flatter you."
Exactly. Flattery breeds distrust. True appreciation, on the other hand, has to be sincere. It has to be unselfish. You're recognizing worth in the other person, not trying to manipulate them, and it comes from the heart out.
So how do you ensure sincerity? Is it about being specific?
Specificity is key. Vague praise can sound like flattery. Sincere appreciation often focuses on a particular quality, action, or contribution. The story of Stevie Morris, who became Stevie Wonder, is a perfect example of this.
What happened there?
He was a young, blind boy in school, and apparently a teacher noticed his incredible sense of hearing. One day, a mouse got lost in the classroom, and the teacher specifically asked Stevie, because of his talented ears, to help locate it by listening.
So she acknowledged his unique ability and gave him a way to contribute, to feel important because of it.
Exactly. It wasn't just, "You're a good boy, Stevie." It was appreciation for a specific, genuine talent he possessed. And Stevie Wonder himself later said that moment, that specific act of recognition, was the start of a new life for him. It encouraged him to trust and develop that gift.
That's powerful. A small act of specific, sincere appreciation changing a life trajectory.
It really is. And think about where appreciation is often most lacking.
In our closest relationships. At home.
Sadly, yes. Carnegie cites a study, I think it was about runaway wives, finding that the main reason cited wasn't abuse or poverty, but simply a profound, ongoing lack of appreciation.
Ouch. That hits close to home for a lot of people, I imagine. We just take the people closest to us for granted.
It's shockingly easy to do. We make sure to eat 3 meals a day, right? But how often do we consciously nourish the self-esteem, the feeling of importance of our spouse, our kids, our colleagues?
Not often enough, probably.
If we don't provide that psychological nourishment, that genuine recognition of their value, eventually they might consciously or unconsciously start looking for it elsewhere. Sincere appreciation isn't about making things up. It's about actively noticing the good that's already there and taking a moment to acknowledge it.
Okay, so we avoid criticism. We give sincere appreciation. What's the third piece? How do we actually influence someone, get them to see things our way, or do what we need them to do?
This brings us to the third major principle, which really builds on the first two. If you want to persuade someone, the secret is arouse in the other person an eager want.
Arouse an eager want. So it's not about telling them what I want. It's about figuring out what they want.
Precisely. You need to frame your proposal, your idea, your request in terms of their interests, their desires, their needs. As Professor Overstreet put it, the person who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way.
Makes sense. Most people don't do that, do they? We tend to focus on our own motivations.
Radically self-focused, Carnegie called it. He uses the example of someone writing advertising copy. The copy was full of "we desire" or "our company wants."
Yeah. Focused entirely on the company's goals.
Right. But the potential customer reading it, they don't care about the company's desires. They're worried about their mortgage, their kids' braces, their own problems and ambitions. If your message doesn't connect to their world, their wants, it's just noise.
You have to translate your goal into their language, their motivation.
Exactly. Show them how your idea helps them get what they want.
The family examples are often really clear on this. Like the story of Stan Novak and his little boy, Tim, who refused to go to kindergarten.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. Tim's kicking and screaming, doesn't want to go. The parent's first instinct might be force, threats, maybe bribes.
Standard parenting playbook sometimes, right?
But Stan and his wife tried a different approach. They used this principle. They sat down and thought, what does Tim want? What would make kindergarten seem desirable to him?
So they listed fun things: finger painting, songs, new friends.
Exactly. Then, crucially, they started doing those fun things at home, really enthusiastically. Finger painting, singing the songs.
And when Tim wanted to join in,
They said something like, "Oh, sorry, Tim, you can't do this yet. You have to go to kindergarten first to learn how."
clever. They framed kindergarten not as a chore, but as the gateway to things he now actively desired. They created the eager want.
Precisely. And the result. The next morning, Tim was apparently up early, dressed, sitting by the door, eager to go learn how to finger paint properly. They didn't push him. They pulled him by appealing to his own budding desires.
That's brilliant. And this isn't just for kids, obviously. Carnegie used it himself in high-stakes negotiations,
Yeah.
like the hotel ballroom incident.
Oh, the rent increase. Yes, that's a fantastic illustration of applying this under pressure. He had been running his lecture series in this hotel ballroom for years, and suddenly the manager tripled the rent, a 300% increase.
Which would have wiped out his profits. Arguing about his own budget wouldn't work, right?
Yeah. Totally useless. The manager doesn't care about Carnegie's finances. The manager cares about the hotel's bottom line. So Carnegie flipped the script entirely.
What did he do?
First, he went to see the manager, but instead of complaining, he started by validating the manager's position. Said something like, "I got your letter, but I don't blame you at all. If I were you, I'd probably do the same thing. Your job is to make the hotel profitable."
So he immediately disarmed the situation by showing understanding.
Exactly. Took the wind out of any potential argument. Then he said, "Let's just look at the pros and cons of this decision for the hotel." And he literally took out a piece of paper and drew 2 columns. Advantages and disadvantages.
For the hotel, not for him.
Right. Under advantages, he wrote things like ballroom free for dances, conventions, which could pay more short term.
Okay. And disadvantages?
Under disadvantages, he focused on the non-monetary value his lectures brought. He pointed out that his courses attracted crowds of educated, cultured, and influential people to the hotel every week. These were exactly the kind of clientele the hotel wanted.
So his lectures were basically free advertising, bringing in the right demographic.
That was his argument. He even estimated that the advertising value of drawing those specific people was likely worth more to the hotel than the extra rent they'd get from him. He framed keeping his lower rent not as a favor to him, but as a smart business decision for the hotel.
He made it about the manager's interests, the hotel's interests.
Completely. He showed the manager how letting him stay at a reasonable rate actually helped the manager achieve his goal of enhancing the hotel's prestige and attracting valuable customers.
And the outcome.
He got a letter the next day. The rent increase was reduced to only 50%, not 300%. He won by making it about the other person's eager want, in this case, the hotel's want for profit and prestige.
That's a masterclass. And it applies to job hunting, too, like the Barbara Anderson example.
Yes. She wanted to relocate to Phoenix and needed a banking job.
Oh.
Instead of sending resumes saying, "I want a job because I'm moving," which is all about her needs.
She focused on the bank's needs.
Entirely. Her cover letter highlighted her 10 years of experience and explicitly stated how she could contribute to your growth and profit, how she could help them achieve their goals. She positioned herself as a solution to their potential problems or needs.
And the results were pretty dramatic, weren't they?
Phenomenal. She wrote to 12 banks like that. 11 of them invited her for an interview.
11 out of 12. That's incredible.
It really underscores the power of this principle. It boils down to what Henry Ford apparently said was the secret to success. If there is any one secret, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own.
See things from their angle. Arouse their eager want.
If you can consistently do that, if you can genuinely shift your focus from your own desires to understanding and appealing to theirs, you've unlocked the core of influence. You're making them the hero of the story and aligning your goals with theirs.
So wrapping this up, we've looked at these 3 foundational ideas from Carnegie. First, the absolute necessity of ditching criticism, condemnation, and complaining, because it just triggers defensiveness.
Right. It simply doesn't work long term.
Second, tapping into that deep human craving for importance by giving honest, sincere appreciation, noticing the good, and acknowledging it specifically.
It's a positive motivator.
And third, the real key to influence. Stop talking about what you want and start framing everything in terms of the other person's interests, arousing their eager want.
Seeing the world through their eyes.
And Carnegie stressed that these aren't just interesting ideas to think about. They're tools. They need practice, persistence. The goal isn't just knowing them, it's doing them until they become habitual.
Absolutely. It's about rewiring those gut reactions. It takes conscious effort day after day. But the potential payoff, better relationships, more influence, less conflict, is enormous.
It really is a call to action, isn't it? Not just passive learning.
Definitely. And if you think about it, mastering these principles isn't really about becoming manipulative. It's actually about developing profound empathy. It's about genuinely caring enough about the other person's perspective, their feelings, their desires, to engage with them on that level.
Moving from self-focus to other focus.
Exactly. Maybe the provocative thought to leave people with is this. Think about one interaction you'll have tomorrow. How can you consciously apply one of these principles? How can you make one person feel genuinely seen and appreciated? Or how can you frame a request entirely around their interests? That small shift, practiced consistently, can really change things.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.